Hi, it's Steph, and I'm at Lowe's, and they have a bunch of new shrubs and perennials. So let's go ahead and take a look at the August inventory at Lowe's. And the first thing that I noticed is that they have some ivory halo dogwoods. I actually planted 3 of these in my garden last year, and what drew me to them was this beautiful variegated foliage. This is a shrub that will be great to provide some winter interest, because what happens is in the winter, when all of these leaves are gone, they'll drop their leaves in the fall as a deciduous shrub. The twigs on this get really bright red. These are more of a burgundy, but really pretty. So imagine you live in an area like I do, in a zone where you get some snow, you see these bright red twigs among the snow. Beautiful. So this one here, the ivory halo dogwood, this is a Monrovia shrub. It says full partial sun, dramatic foliage, multi-season beauty, and these are $49.98. They look to be about a 2-gallon container or so. And dogwoods also like water, so I planted these in an area of my garden that has a bit more moist soil, and they seem to be doing well. So it says this dwarf dogwood has brilliant red winter stems and showy light green and creamy leaves. Likes partial to full sun, keep soil moist, blooms late spring to early summer. It gets these little clusters of white blooms before the foliage gets a lot bigger on the shrub. And the size on these, it is moderately growing, compact, rounded form, reaches 5 to 6 feet tall and wide. Some Rose of Sharon trees. Now, Rose of Sharon are really pretty mid to late summer bloomers. The thing to keep in mind with these is some of the older varieties will self-seed prolifically, so they can become invasive. So you want to look for varieties that have sterile seeds, but if you don't mind pulling out the seedlings, then you can go one of these old-fashioned varieties. So this one here says Rose of Sharon, $49.98 for these on a standard or tree form. They like 6 hours of direct sun, so full sun, and they get to be 10 foot high by 8 feet wide, and they're hardy down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit or a zone 5. And let's see how much these are. Oh, $49.98. I might have said that already, but that is for these tree form Rose of Sharons. And in case you're looking for the size of the container, they're a 4.5 gallon. They also have these really pretty white Rose of Sharon, and these are more in shrub form. But even these, at some point, once they start getting bigger, you can start selectively pruning the branches and kind of give it a tree form. If you limb it up, clean up some of the foliage on the lower end of the shrub, it can really take on like a multi-stem tree and look really pretty. But look how beautiful this is. Looks really tropical. So these are it looks to be a 2-gallon container. And it says Rose of Sharon blooms in summer and fall, full sun. And let's see, price is scraped off on this one. Let's check another one. $26.98 for this 2.33 gallon. Look at the pretty foliage on these azaleas here. So these are the Gerard's Scarlet Azalea. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of the really early varieties of azalea, or at least earlier than some of the other ones. It might be native in my area here in Massachusetts. So the Gerard's Scarlet Azalea, it says that it's a rhododendron Gerard Scarlet, so it must be a cross between a rhododendron and an azalea. It blooms in spring. It likes part sun. Gets to be 3 feet high by 4 feet wide, hardy to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit or to zone 5. Now, azaleas, I do find that deer in my garden do eat on them, so something to keep in mind if you plant azaleas and you deal with deer. $21.98, and it looks to be about a 2-gallon container. They still have some really healthy looking rhododendron, and rhododendron are a beautiful spring bloomer. For me in my garden, they bloom sometime in May. And so if you want to have beautiful blooms next spring, now in the fall would be a great time to plant some of these. So this one is one of the more common rhododendrons. It's the Rosum elegans, and it has that pink, traditional pink rhododendron colored bloom. It blooms in spring. This container here is 2 gallons for almost 2 gallons, 1.71 for $26.98. They like part sun, so anywhere from 3 to 6 hours of morning sun. Morning sun is generally softer than afternoon sun, which can be a bit harsher. And let's see, this one gets to be 8 feet high by 10 feet wide, and it is hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit or to zone 4. Now, rhododendrons, you do have to protect the buds, at least in my garden, because the deer will come around and try to eat the buds on them. So I just spray throughout the winter if I can, and it really does help. But these are a really beautiful bloomer. They're also a great foundational type of plant. Just give them ample space away from the foundation of your home. And they're a great understory shrub along with the azalea. So if you have trees growing overhead and you plant these below, really good spot to plant rhododendron. Lowe's also has a new shipment of some arborvitae getting ready for fall planting. These are great for privacy screening, living fences. Great option. When it comes to arborvitae, they do really like water, especially when they're newly planted. So you want to make sure that you water them well. See, it says water me. Water often the first year. So these here are $43.98. They're emerald green arborvitae. Now the emerald green arborvitae has a more dense foliage habit. Something to keep in mind with arborvitae is that deer also do like to eat on these, and they will start chewing them and they'll become misshapen. So one variety that I have found to be more deer resistant than some of the others are the green giant arborvitae. So these here look to be about 3 to 4 feet tall. They're maybe in a 5-gallon container, and they are $43.98. And here at Lowe's, if you are going to do a screening project, they also have this buy in bulk savings. So if you buy, so it looks like they're a 3.58 gallon. If you buy 15 or more, you will pay $39.58 instead of $43.98. So a 10% savings. And check out this gorgeous coreopsis. This one here is called Lil Bang Candy Stripe, and it's by Monrovia. Typically when you think of coreopsis, you think of the golden yellow coreopsis, but there's quite a few varieties. There's the moonbeam, that's a really light yellow, and then there's this variety. It looks like it's a creamy color with a bit of a maroon or dark fuchsia center. Let's focus on that. Look how pretty. Now these are prolific bloomers. Look at all these buds. They just bloom and bloom from the beginning of summer through fall. And if you deadhead them, which means that once the blooms are spent like this, you just follow the stem down and trim it off, it will keep producing new buds. They also come in beautiful red varieties like this. So if you like hot colors in your garden, you're sure to find a coreopsis that fits your color scheme. So let's go back to this Lil Bang Candy Stripe. This one is a Monrovia plant. It is a full sun perennial. $10.98 for this container here. It says easy care, and it needs 6+ hours of direct sun, low watering once established. It gets to be 6 to 12 inches in height and 8 to 12 inches in width. Blooms summer and fall and hardy to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. And the beautiful maroon variety is called Mercury Rising Coreopsis, also full sun perennial. These are $13.98, so they're a little bit more. The container is also a little bit larger, if you look at that. And the Mercury Rising, it says it's easy care water-wise. So these need little water once established. They're pretty drought tolerant. They need 6+ hours of direct sun. Size gets to be 15 to 18 inches in height and 24 to 36 inches in width, and they bloom summer and fall, hardy to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. The great thing about these perennials is that they grow fairly quickly. So instead of buying 3 right off the bat, you can actually get 1, divide it in half and start with 2, and within a couple of years you can divide it again. And so from one plant, within 2 to 3 years, you can have multiples. Some gorgeous cone flowers. These are one of my favorite perennials. They start blooming for me in July in my zone 6, and with deadheading they can go through fall, at least through September. And then at that point you can leave these beautiful cones up for winter. They provide a lot of visual interest over the winter months, and goldfinches absolutely love the seeds on cone flowers. So let's check out these varieties. The Sombrero Adobe Orange, a really beautiful orange coneflower, full sun perennial. Now coneflowers like a well-draining soil in a full sun location. This container here is $10.98, and they need 6+ hours of sun per day, low watering once established. They are pretty drought tolerant once they are established. The size on these get to be 24 to 26 inches in height and 16 to 18 inches in width. They bloom summer and fall and hardy to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. And the pollinators absolutely love coneflowers. And this gorgeous yellow variety is the Sombrero Lemon yellow coneflower, also a full sun perennial, $10.98. And let's see how big this variety gets. It needs full sun, and it gets 18 to 24 inches in height and 18 inches in width. Blooms summer and fall, hardy to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And these look really pretty together. Are you looking to add some fall color to your garden? Well, here we go. Montauk daisies. These are a wonderful daisy-like flower that come into their own in fall. So the Montauk daisy here is $10.98. It's a perennial for full sun. And they get to be, they're 24 to 36 inches in height and 18 to 24 inches in width. Now, I have seen these get quite large, so they can get a bit larger than this. And they're hardy down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit or zone 5. These also have a tendency to get a bit woody, so they could benefit from being cut down each season to prevent too much of that woodiness from occurring, but also frequent dividing. But look how large those buds are, and really pretty big shiny green foliage as well. And then you get the traditional looking daisy. So these are a later blooming daisy. In the mid to late summer, you get the regular Shasta daisies, and then these will pick up, the Montauk daisies, into fall. So this Lowe's looks to be putting some of their proven winners and first edition shrubs on clearance at 50% off. So let's see what they have on this rack. Now my Lowe's was waiting on some inventory, so I'm at one about 25 minutes away from home. So check out this beautiful foliage that looks like sage, the herb. Well, it's actually a variety of shrub that's called a sage leaf willow, and it has this beautiful blue-gray coloring, and it's a first edition shrub. I actually added this to my garden last fall. I added 2 of these that I had bought on clearance last year. So that's what the shrub looks like, and it's called Iceberg Alley Sage Leaf Willow by First Editions, and in the spring it gets these beautiful little catkins that are the blooms. And they're very dainty, but very cute. It has powdery silver foliage and adds texture and contrast to the landscape. And it is a full sun shrub, medium to high water needs because it is a willow, and willows do like water. And the size on this gets to be 3 to 6 feet high and 3 to 6 feet wide. And the shrub is $27.98, so 50% off, it would be right around $14. Has really pretty coloring. And they also have some proven winners viburnum. So this here is the Brandywine viburnum, and it says it has fall color. And it's always good to add shrubs to your garden that provide multi-season interest. So this one here says that it likes sun or part shade. It is hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets to be 5 to 6 feet tall and wide. And bloom time is spring and fall fruit. So it blooms in the spring. So according to the card here, it says the Brandywine viburnum's white spring flowers produce unique pink and blue berries in fall, and the fruit pops against a backdrop of colorful foliage. They're resistant and shade tolerant. Look at those berries. And so you can see here where it would have bloomed, and it has this really large shiny foliage. It'll probably look really beautiful with its fall color. So these viburnum Brandywine are $27.98 for a 1.71 gallon at 50% off. It'd be right around $14. What a pretty yarrow. Look at this. It has lots of shades of pink. I actually thought it was the Tutti Frutti Apricot Delight that I have in my garden, but this one's a little more pink versus a bit peach like my Tutti Frutti. This variety here is called the Sassy Summer Taffy Yarrow, and this container is about a 2 gallon, and it is $15.98. Yarrow likes full sun. It's an upright perennial. It blooms summer and fall. And let's see how big this variety gets. So this one here is hardy to zone 3, so very hardy, down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and it gets to be 30 to 36 inches in height and 36 to 42 inches in width. This is beautiful. And there's also this other beautiful variety. If you like more hot colors, oranges, yellows, reds in your garden, this one would be really complimentary. Imagine this with some coreopsis near it. The different shape of the blooms would look really nice together. This variety here is the Sassy Summer Sunset Yarrow, and it is a full sun upright perennial. These are $15.98, the colored containers. These look to be about a 2 gallon or 1.71. And it is hardy down to zone 3, negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And this variety also gets to be 30 to 36 inches in height and 30 to 32 inches in width. Some more beautiful coreopsis. Tons of bloom buds left on this plant. And this one here, let's see what variety it is. It is the Sun-Kissed Coreopsis. These come in a ton of varieties. And it has the yellow with a little bit of the red in the center. It is a full sun perennial. These are the almost 2 gallons for $15.98. It blooms spring and summer. And it is hardy down to zone 4 or negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Gets to be 12 to 14 inches in height and 14 to 16 inches in width. Now this Lowe's is starting to get a lot of the ornamental grasses, which is also very reminiscent of fall. And this bronze beauty here caught my eye. Look at that. It really pops against all the green. So let's check that out. This is a Monrovia ornamental grass. And the variety is called Fox Red Curly Sedge. It's a full or partial sun type grass. Easy care, great in containers, $39.98. And it looks to be a number 2 container. And let's see, how big do these get? Look at the shape of that. It looks to be 3 feet by 3 feet that it needs in spacing. It says it's slowly forms clumps 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, hardy to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit in zones 5 through 9. Inconspicuous and prized for foliage. Keep soil consistently moist, and it likes partial to full sun. It's actually gorgeous. Look at this. They also have some zebra miscanthus, so these get to be fairly large, and it has a bit of striping on here, horizontal striping, which provides a lot of interest on this particular grass. These are pretty good sized containers, 2.33 gallon for $22.98. Now, I don't see specs on these, but I want to say that they probably get anywhere in that 3 to 6 foot tall range and maybe about a 4 foot wide. So give these some space. And some Hamlin dwarf fountain grass. I do have some of this in my garden, and it's great. It's a low growing grass, and in the fall they start putting up these little furry plumes, and it just looks really pretty, especially when the sunlight hits them. Gorgeous. So this one here is a texture ornamental grass, adds seasonal interest, $22.98, and it looks to be 2.5, 3 gallons. 2.33 gallon is what it says here. It needs full sun. Let's see the size on this one. It gets to be 20 inches in height by 20 inches in width, and it is hardy down to zone 5 or negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Hamlin dwarf fountain grass. And it doesn't have its plumes yet. It just looks like grass, a grassy clump when it's not in bloom. But any day now, probably towards the end of August in my zone 6, it will start sending up those plumes and go through the fall, and they look really, really pretty. And they also have a bunch of the green giant arborvitaes that I was talking about earlier that seem to be more deer resistant. And these have a more open, wispy type foliage texture. You can see they're not as dense and tight as the emerald green arborvitae. So these here also look to be about 3 to 4 foot in height, and they are $59.98 for the green giant arborvitae. They like full sun also. Water these well until established, and it looks like they're also offering the bulk discount on these here. Tag is upside down, but let's see what it says. So $59.98 individually, or when you buy 20 or more, $53.98. And some gorgeous pink coneflowers. These are actually the first coneflowers that I bought for my garden, the Pow Wow Wildberry, and they are prolific self-seeders, so now I have a bunch of them and I absolutely love them. Pow Wow Wildberry is a full sun perennial. It is a summer and fall bloomer. $8.98 for this container. It is hardy down to zone 3 or negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and it gets to be 15 to 18 inches in height and 12 to 18 inches in width. Now it says that they're deer resistant, but I don't know. I feel like bunnies and deer probably would eat these, so I would tread on the side of caution and certainly protect them if that's something you deal with in your garden. Now here is the Pow Wow Wildberry, right? It's a nice, pretty, bright pink. And then there's this gorgeous one that is Sunseeker's Red Coneflower by Monrovia. And I wanted to put this one near it so you can see the color contrast. One is a brighter pink, and this one is more of a darker type fuchsia pink, even though it's called red. Really pretty. The Monrovia Sunseeker's Red Coneflower is a full sun perennial, $10.98. And it says that it needs 6+ hours of direct sun, low watering once established. It gets to be 18 to 24 inches in height, 16 to 18 inches in width, and it blooms summer and fall, hardy to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And some gorgeous phlox, a quintessential summer garden bloomer. Now there are multiple varieties of phlox. There is early blooming. I have one called Fashionably Early Crystal in my garden that bloomed really early. Then there's mid-season and late season. There's also different types of foliage. So lots of varieties that you can extend your phlox growing season in your garden. Now something to keep in mind with phlox is that it is susceptible to something called powdery mildew, which means you want to give it proper spacing so that it has good airflow and prevents that powdery substance that will appear on the foliage. Now it doesn't kill the plant, but it's very unsightly. So here, this variety is a Proven Winners Luminary Opulence phlox. It is a full sun phlox. This is $15.98 for this container here. And let's see. This variety gets to be 30 to 32 inches in height, so it's pretty tall. So I would say this is a middle of the border or back of the border type plant. It needs 24-inch spacing, hardy in zones 3 through 8 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and it blooms mid to late summer. It likes full sun. This 1 in a melon coneflower always catches my eye because of how large these blooms are. Look at this. I'm going to show you a comparison. So here's the Sombrero lemon yellow coneflower that we looked at earlier. And the size of the blooms are pretty traditional coneflower size blooms. But when I compare it to the blooms on this 1 in a melon, you can really tell the difference. Look at that. This one is pretty much as big as my hand. And this one's a lot smaller. Not a lot, but I would say this one is probably a 4 to 5 inch bloom across, and this one is maybe a 2.5 inch bloom. So it's a good difference. Proven Winners color-coded 1 in a melon coneflower is a full sun perennial. These are $12.98 for the 2.5 quart container. They get to be 24 to 26 inches in height, and they need 18-inch spacing, hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and they bloom midsummer through early fall. They need full to part sun. These are a stunning coneflower. Here's another really beautiful phlox. This one is in the Lowe's house brand container, and it is the Garden Girls Party Girl Garden Phlox. So that's a mouthful, right? So this variety here is also full sun. It's $8.98, blooms in summer, and hardy to zone 3 or negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And this one is 28 to 32 inches. This would be a middle to back of the border type plant. And spacing, you need to give it 28 to 32 inch spacing. I'd probably give it about 36 inch spacing just to give it proper air circulation. And it says that it is deer resistant. I haven't found that the deer eat my phlox, so perhaps it is pretty deer resistant. But of course, that's just a warning because hungry deer will try anything. So some really pretty hibiscus. This is the Luna hibiscus. I actually have a white variety in my garden, and they have these really large, beautiful blooms that are, these are probably like a smaller, like saucer size. Some of the Proven Winners hardy hibiscus are like a dinner plate size. So these are just slightly smaller than those. Still fairly large, really pretty tropical looking flower. And these also like water. Actually, they're called swamp mallow in some cases. And so that will indicate that they do like water. Really, really pretty for a mid to late summer bloomer. These typically bloom for me at the very end of July, beginning of August in my zone 6. It is an upright perennial. These shrubs get pretty good size. So this container here is $16.98. They like full sun. They want to be moist. It says keep moist first year, 2 times per week after that. Hardy to zone 5, and they get to be 36 inches in height and 24 inches in width. Something to note with hibiscus is if they don't get enough water, they will start dropping their bloom buds without even blooming. So if you see that happening, then you know it's a sign that they need more water. And I want to say that they get bigger than this. 36 height is probably accurate, but 24 width. Mine is probably about 36 inches wide at this point, and it might get closer to 48 at full size. So give them a little bit of space, but they're really beautiful perennial shrub for this time of the season. So I noticed that they have these cool Eugenia topiaries here at this Lowe's. Something to keep in mind with these Eugenias is you want to know what your gardening zone is. Here in my zone 6, these are not going to be winter hardy. So they would have to be protected by being brought into a sheltered location that might have some heat for the winter. But because you see things like this at the garden center, you might assume that they're hardy in your zone, but they're not. So be aware of that when you're purchasing these types of plants. So as you can see here, I'm in a zone 6 and this is only hardy to zone 9. So something that I learned in the past that I thought that I would share. And they're also kind of expensive for an annual, $49.98 for a 2.25 gallon. So you certainly want to protect it for the winter if you want to have it for more than one season, especially if you're in a zone lower than a 9. And check out this beautiful shrub. This is a St. John's wort called Floral Berry Champagne. Look at this. So unique. Beautiful. It looks like it also gets some yellow blooms. It's not in bloom at the moment, but it does have these really pretty berries. And let's see how big this one gets. So it's a full partial sun, Monrovia exclusive ornamental berries. It's $39.98. And it says that it has buttery yellow flowers to produce clusters of lovely summer berries on well-branched, rust-resistant plants. A deciduous shrub, so it'll lose its leaves in the winter. It needs partial sun to full sun. Blooms in summer, followed by the berries in fall. Hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. An average size is moderate growing, reaches 3 feet tall and wide. So these are the types of things that you can add to your garden to start giving you that late summer to fall interest. And let's compare two really pretty variegated types of Weigela. So this one here is in the Lowe's house brand container, and it is called Weigela Florida. And this is $18.98. It says that it's a full sun shrub. It blooms in spring, and then you still get interest with this really pretty variegation. Now the cool thing about this is when you see variegated plants, you usually see a shade of green and like a white or ivory, and this one is two different shades of green. A lighter green on the outside and a darker green inside. So the Weigela Florida here, let's see. It gets to be 9 feet high by 10 feet wide. So this is a really large shrub, and it is hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit or zone 4. It says it is deer resistant, and I can say that that is probably pretty accurate. I have the Wine and Roses Weigela in my garden, and they are not bothered by the deer. And the bloom color looks to be pink, like a dark shade of pink. And then right on the side, we have a Monrovia version of a variegated Weigela, and this one is also called Weigela Florida. So it is essentially the same shrub. You're just getting one in the Lowe's container for $18.98 in a slightly smaller, a 1.71 gallon. And this one by Monrovia here is, let's see what size container this is. It's in a 1.73, so the size is pretty much comparable. And the Monrovia one is $42.98. So you can save yourself essentially half the price and go with the Lowe's brand. But of course, Monrovia is a national brand. It's got a great reputation. It all depends what your budget is. And so here, let's check this out. It says that it needs full sun, water when the top 2 inches of soil is dry, blooms late spring through summer. It's hardy in zones 4 through 9. Down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's moderately growing, reaching 4 feet tall and 5 feet wide. So here's something that I just noticed between these two info cards. This one here is telling us that it gets 9 feet high by 10 feet wide, and this variety here is telling us that it gets to be 4 feet tall and 5 feet wide. So that is quite a discrepancy. This one is quoting it to be almost double the size. So this is when I would do a Google search and just make sure that what I'm seeing online kind of coordinates or matches the sizes that are being given by these tags here. Some more beautiful Rose of Sharon. These are by Proven Winners, and this variety here is called White Chiffon. It's a frilly white hibiscus or Rose of Sharon, which is a very similar hibiscus bloom. And the White Chiffon Rose of Sharon is a sun shrub, hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and it gets to be 8 to 12 feet tall and 6 to 10 feet wide. It says it's long blooming double flowers. Look at that. Really pretty shrub. And $39.98 for a 3-gallon size. And then they have this really pretty Lil Kim variety. These pink blooms with a red throat. The Lil Kim Rose of Sharon by Proven Winners is a sun shrub, hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And this one is more petite at 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. And this one here is also a 3-gallon for $39.98. This time of year in August, we're all about the fall color. And look at this one. It is a sparkler arrowhead viburnum, full to partial sun, dramatic fall color. It looks like it would have bloomed already. Look at that, it has all these little bracts. And look at those blooms there. Clusters of white blooms. Really pretty. Gosh, I think everything's pretty and I just want it all. But let's see here. The light conditions for this one is partial to full sun. It blooms late spring to early summer, hardy in zones 4 through 9, and it is hardy negative 30 to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It is moderate growing, reaching 10 to 15 feet tall and wide. So this one needs some space. $44.98 there. Here's another Rose of Sharon by Proven Winners. This one is called Lavender Chiffon. And the Lavender Chiffon says that it's an award winner. And this one here gets to be, it's deer resistant, attracts butterflies, and it gets to be 8 to 12 feet tall, 4 to 6 feet wide, hardy in zones 5 through 8 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are in a 2-gallon container for $27.98. And hydrangeas, another really pretty mid to late summer shrub that will provide fall interest as well with the color changes it goes through. In cooler zones like mine, zone 6, we get cooler evenings, and so that will help the hydrangea transition to this shade of pink that you see here. In some of the warmer zones, they might not necessarily go through all of those different color changes. So something to keep in mind if you live in a zone that is warmer than a, say, maybe 6 or 7. So here, this is the house brand container. So the Lowe's house brand container, and this hydrangea is called Hydrangea Fire and Ice. My guess is that this is a their version of the Firelight hydrangea by Proven Winners. But this one here is in just under a 2-gallon, so maybe a 1.71 gallon container. Yep, that's what it says here. For $19.98. It is a part sun shrub, so it needs 3 to 6 hours of morning sun. And let's see, it gets to be 6 feet high and 6 feet wide, and it's hardy to zone 3 or negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. $19.98 is a really good price for a hydrangea, and these grow fairly fast if they're happy in their spot. Another late summer shrub here. It's actually a perennial, but it could be considered a woody shrub, sort of like lavender. So lavender is a perennial, but because it gets pretty woody, some people would consider it a shrub. You can tell what I mean by woody in terms of this here. So this is actually the Sunshine Blue to Bluebeard or Caryopteris. So this one has a really pretty like purplish blue type bloom. This is a 2-gallon for $29.98. And it needs sun. It is hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets to be 3 feet tall and wide. Drought tolerant and colorful foliage. So this one gets a bit of a yellow colored foliage. Look at that. Here's a little more information on the Sunshine Blue Bluebeard. It's a yellow leafed variety with improved hardiness. Late summer brings loads of blue flowers that contrast with sunny foliage. So this is great for summer and fall interest. Check this out. And I found one of those St. John's wort shrubs that are actually still in bloom, and this is what the blooms look like. Look at that contrast. Very interesting looking shrub. Gorgeous tree alert. Look at this, a redbud. Redbuds are known for their beautiful heart-shaped foliage. Look at that. And this one, because it has this ruby or red coloring, even looks more like a heart. This here is the Forest Pansy Redbud. This is a Monrovia tree. Full sun, dramatic accent, early blooms. So in the fall, redbuds get these, in the spring, redbuds get these really beautiful pink blooms that are very dainty, but the branches get filled with them, so it's quite a sight. And this one here is $99. It needs full sun, water when top 3 inches of soil is dry. It blooms early spring, hardy in zones 5 through 9. We're down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and it says that it's a moderate grower, reaching 20 feet tall by 25 feet wide. Look at that. Red foliage trees are just really gorgeous in the landscape because everything around it is generally pretty green, right, in a garden, so they really pop. Both these red forest pansy red buds and Japanese maples, which are one of my favorite trees. Look at this. So this here is also a Monrovia tree. It is the Emperor 1 Japanese maple. So this is right up there with the Bloodgood as a very much popular front of the yard landscape tree for some red foliage. So this one here is a full or partial sun tree, has dramatic fall color. And these are, let's see, they don't really bloom, but they get these little seed pods that kind of hang from them, and they get to be, let's see, they're hardy in zones 5 through 8 down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, and they get to be 15 feet tall and 15 feet wide. This one here is $164, and it looks to be maybe a 5-gallon container. Encore azaleas. These are known to be reblooming azaleas. So typically traditional azaleas bloom one time in the spring and then they're done. You just get them to be a shrub with green foliage, and mine is semi-evergreen. It does lose a lot of its leaves in the winter time. I might hold on to a few, but not many. So this one here is the Amethyst, Autumn Amethyst by Encore Azalea, and it looks like it gets to be 4 feet high and 4 feet wide. It needs 4 to 6 hours of direct sun, so part sun, and hardy in zones 6A through 10. So we are just at the beginning of the range for these being hardy for us. And this is a pretty good sized container, maybe a number 3. Yeah, a 3-gallon for $34.98. And this one is actually reblooming. Look at that. Really pretty pink blooms. The foliage on this shrub looks like lavender, but it's not lavender actually. It's Hypericum, and it has blooms very similar to the St. John's wort that we just saw. It's a mounded grower, silver green foliage, full sun. It has medium water needs, and it gets to be 2 to 3 feet in height and 4 to 5 feet in width, deer resistant, drought tolerant. This is a first edition shrub, a 2-gallon for $27.98. Another variegated shrub, and this one is that green with the creamy outers. And this is Durvilla, I think it's called, honeysuckle. It's a type of honeysuckle, and so it's called Cool Splash Dwarf Bush Honeysuckle, and it has variegated foliage, and it gets these little yellow blooms. I see some in the back there, so I'll show you what they look like. This is a full sun to part shade exposure shrub, white and green foliage, medium water needs, hardy in zones 4 through 7, and it gets to be 2.5 to 4.5 feet tall and wide. So good, petite sized shrub, deer resistant, drought tolerant. And here there are still a couple of blooms on this shrub. Just really small little yellow blooms. First edition shrub, and it is a 2-gallon for $27.98. Now, if you want to mulch your garden less as time goes on, which is going to be ideal, right? Because mulch is a lot of work, it's a lot of expense. You'll want to plant some ground covers. Now, there are perennial ground covers and there are evergreen ground covers. This here is a blue star juniper and blue rug juniper rather, and this is an evergreen type ground cover. I actually planted a few of these in my garden last year and I absolutely love them, and they're actually growing pretty well. So junipers don't like soggy soil. They like a well draining soil that leans a bit dry. Of course, you do have to water them when you first plant them to get them established. They like 6+ hours of direct sun per day. This container here is just under a 2-gallon for $17.98. It has a blue-green hue to it, and it gets to be 1 foot high by 8 feet wide, so it's pretty spreading. And what it will do is it'll cover a good deal of your soil, not allowing weeds to grow through. And it acts like a living mulch so that it will shade the roots of your plants, and everything just kind of grows together. It says it is deer resistant and has a trailing growth habit. Hardy down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit or zone 3. And some climbing hydrangeas. So if you have an area where you have a tree that you want to train some hydrangeas up, or even the side of a garage or shed that you want to let something kind of just climb up, this might be a good option. Now, these do take some time to get established and to start blooming and climbing well, but they are so beautiful once they really start going. So this here just says that it is climbing hydrangea, a deciduous vine, so it's going to lose its foliage in the fall. Dark green foliage, fragrant white flowers, and grows 6 to 10, well, that should definitely say 6 to 10 feet, not inches tall. Sun to part shade, rich porous soil, regular water use. The climbing hydrangea does come staked, and it is $34.98 for a 2.33 gallon. 9 barks are also another really pretty dark foliage shrub that provides some fall interest in your garden. Look at that. I have the summer wine 9 bark in my garden, and also the tiny wine by Proven Winners, and they bloom really pretty in the spring with these clusters of blooms. That's actually what the blooms look like. They're like pinky ivory with a little bit of peach. And so this one here is the summer wine 9 bark, which is actually the one that I have by Proven Winners. And it likes sun, and it's hardy in zones 3 through 7 or down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Gets to be 5 to 8 feet tall and wide. It is native, deer resistant, and compact. Look at that. The dark foliage with the blooms makes a really great contrast. And this container here is a 2 gallon for $27.98. Here's something I'm always tempted by: figs. I absolutely adore figs. Problem is, they don't ever do well for me. I've had a Desert King that I stored in the basement for 2 to 3 years, and it just never bared fruit. So I ended up planting it outside, and while I do have foliage this year, no figs. And now I'm tempted by this Chicago Hardy. Do any of you in a zone 6 grow a Chicago Hardy fig outdoors? Do you have to do anything with it in the winter? I would really prefer not to have it in a pot and bring it in and out. That's the whole reason why I ended up planting out the Desert King. I figured, well, if it's not going to give me figs, out it goes, and we'll see what happens. But these containers here are $14.98. It says that it is hardy in zones 5 through 10, but I think that if we get pretty low temperatures, it'll die all the way back, and then I'll just get foliage the next year and not fruit. So if anyone knows more about figs than I do, please comment below and let me know. Full sun, gets to be 12 feet high, 10 feet wide, so it can be trained into a shrub or small tree. Here's another example of why it's important to read tags. This is a gardenia. Now, I know, living in the East Coast in New England, that gardenias are not generally hardy for us. There might be a couple of varieties out there that I'm just not aware of, but this one here is hardy to zone 7. I'm in a zone 6. So if I were to plant this in my garden, chances are it wouldn't make it through the winter, especially if we have a bad winter, unless it's in a really protected location, but it would be a risk. So that's very important to know your gardening zone and to pay attention to the tags. So this gardenia here says it's called Sweet Tea, and it likes full sun to part shade exposure, dark green foliage, medium water needs, gets to be 3 to 5 feet tall and wide, deer resistant and fragrant. Hardy zone 7 through 9. $27.98. This store here also still has a bunch of hostas, and hosta are a great foliage plant, but in my garden they tend to be deer salad, so I don't have too many at this point, but I'm also just growing my shade now, so I still have quite a bit of sun in my garden. This variety is by Monrovia. It's called Atlantis. It is $10.98, and hostas have so many beautiful foliage colors. It's a great way to add a lot of interest to a shade garden. You basically add color through different foliage. And this one here likes 1 to 3 hours of morning sun. The soil semi-moist, gets to be 30 inches high by 70 wide, so it gets pretty good size. Blooms in summer, and it is hardy to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And the blooms are what you see here. These are pretty much spent now, but they're these bloom stalks with these little bell-shaped flowers. And then some people cut them off, but the pollinators really love them. Look how pretty this bright yellow one is. So see the contrast with the green, and then you add in one with variegated foliage. It makes a really pretty shade garden combination. So this gold one here is a Proven Winners variety, and it is the Shadowland Coast to Coast. $12.98. It was a hosta of the year, part shade, perennial. And it gets to be 30 inches tall, needs 36-inch spacing, hardy in zones 3 through 9 or down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Hostas are super hardy. They're also really easy to divide. So if you were to buy this hosta here, you could very easily see where there's a division point there. Look, you can get 2 plants out of this hosta right out of the container. So you would pay $12.98. And you could potentially get 2 plants out of it if you wanted to. Yeah, it'll be a little smaller now, but these grow really fast. Here's a close-up of hosta blooms. That's what they look like. And look at this really tiny spirea. It is so cute. There's a bee on it. It's a first edition shrub, and it's called Sundrop Spirea, a flowering shrub. And look at this, full sun. It only gets to be 12 to 15 inches in height and 2 to 3 feet wide. So nice and compact, meaning it would fit in a number of different size gardens. And this is a 2-gallon for $27.98. And look at these really large heucheras here. Another really pretty plant for your shade gardens. So this has dark foliage, and it's actually in bloom right now. And the blooms on hostas are these little stalks that come up above the plant. These little blooms, they almost look like baby's breath. And look at that. It's green on the top and red on the back. Now there's no name on these, but they're in the Lowe's House brand container, and they look to be a 2.33 gallon for $19.98. I do prefer cool colors in my garden. I made this arrangement quickly with some perennials and a shrub to kind of show you how pretty these hot colors can look together. This is a 1 in a melon coneflower with this sunset yarrow, that bronze grass in the background by Monrovia, some daylilies, and even a dark foliage shrub, a weigela. You can even incorporate in some of this coreopsis in the front as a shorter perennial. And this combination looks absolutely beautiful. You get different textures with the different foliage. This one has a dark leaf. Here we have some blue-gray ferny foliage, the strappy foliage of the daylilies. Even the blooms have different shapes. This one's like a bell shape. This one with the petals. All of it working together, the vertical interest of the grass. It just makes for a really pretty garden. Another really pretty combo here, we have the short in the front for vertical interest with the speedwell or veronica, then some yellow and powwow pink coneflowers, some yarrow that is also pink with a yellow center, and then some phlox in the back. So you're going short, medium, tall. It's for a really beautiful perennial garden. This is the First Glory Speedwell Veronica by Monrovia. It is a full sun perennial, $10.98. And it says it is deer resistant, easy care. It needs semi-moist soil. It gets to be 12 to 18 inches in height, 12 to 18 inches in width, and blooms spring and summer, hardy to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And they've even started to get some fall mums. But we're not ready for those yet, right? We still want to do some fall planting in our garden, which is a prime time to do some planting. So I hope that you've enjoyed checking out the August inventory at Lowe's. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.